So Resistance is out. Good pilot? Bad pilot? Pretty okay pilot? Let's break it down now in this review.
How you get so big getting food of this kind?
Alright, so I know I'm about a day late to the game, but I'm coming in with my review of Star Wars Resistance, The Recruit, the 1-hour premiere of the first season of Star Wars Resistance. And I gotta say, I was pretty darned impressed. If you saw my other videos leading up to this, I'd said a couple of times that I was anticipating kind of a corny first season that was, just kind of light, fun, more for kids, and that the show would mature. It's what Star Wars Clone Wars did, it's what Star Wars Rebels did. Past precedent had taught me that that's what was going to go on here. I can't actually tell you if that's what happened or not, partly because I've just watched a pilot, but partly because there's a fundamental difference in what's going on here in Resistance and what's gone on in the past two series. Now, I will make this spoiler-free, so don't worry. I will also get into spoilers later in other material, I just kind of want to get this out now. But for those of you who are deciding whether or not you want to dive in, this is kind of the core difference between what's going on in this series and the past. This series starts out pretty small scale. Part of the problem with the first couple episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars, or with the Star Wars Clone Wars movie, was a lot of people had issues with Ahsoka, who was written as kind of like a kid at the time, and she had these corny nicknames, but I don't even know that that was really the problem. The problem was that you had this kid with her corny nicknames alongside Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Senator Padme, like all of these mega iconic characters, and suddenly there was this new kid on the street who was just behaving like your annoying neighbor's kid sister, and you just really didn't want to deal with her. It was the corny humor, but I think it was really the corny humor amongst these icons of the Star Wars saga. And then you go to Star Wars Rebels, which I think had the same learning curve, but the same learning curve that went faster. And you had something with Ezra, who was kind of this space Aladdin. And while he wasn't dealing with iconic characters right from the get-go, he was dealing with iconic concepts, I suppose. Kanan was a former Jedi. Even if we didn't know who he was, or you might have if you'd read some of the time material, but really, if you're taking Rebels as its own thing, we don't really know who he is, but we know what a Jedi is. And we all have very strong preconceived notions on what a Jedi is. We know what the Rebellion is, and we knew Rebels was going to be kind of this origin story of the Rebel Alliance, and we knew what the Empire was. And so there were still these grand galactic things going on where we had to get used to these new characters. Star Wars Resistance is very different. It's taking place on a setting we've never seen before. It's just like this floating mech city in the middle of an ocean on a planet we've never seen. There's really not a lot of iconography that we're used to. I mean, yes, there's aliens that we're used to, and there were all these kind of cool new and old faces from the Star Wars saga that was fun, but really the only tangible thing we had was Poe Dameron. We see Leia, we don't hear from Leia, but we see her, and we see Poe in his nifty Resistance jacket, because he hasn't given it to Finn yet. And really, if you think about it, we've only known Poe since 2015. It's 2018. It's a little bit different than, characters that we've heard of since 1977. It really just felt like new faces and new places. I think that's the strong point of the show, because the show still had some corny gags. It still had a lot of slapstick humor. It did improve greatly over what we'd seen in the other shows. So where Rebels was a little bit less kiddie than the Clone Wars was right from the get-go, this is a little bit less kiddie than Rebels, which would make sense that they would kind of continue that, kind of keeping that Star Wars animation fan base that they already have. But also it just felt like the humor was appropriate for the setting. I think that's the big point with the show that is going to help it. We weren't in the Clone Wars with Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the most important members of the Jedi High Council, and then suddenly there's goofy stuff going on. It was just, there's goofy stuff going on because it was a bunch of goofs. As much as I never really had a problem per se with the humor in the Clone Wars, I can recognize how that humor might not have always been appropriate in the setting. This time, it's not that the humor in Resistance is bad or good, it's that the humor in Resistance is appropriate for where Resistance is taking place. That they're setting it in the midst of these big galactic events, and there are things that happen in it that remind you how grave things are about to be, but where the Clone Wars is set during the Clone Wars, and Rebels is set when the Empire is already attacking people and hurting people, and the rebellion is growing, Resistance is set while we still have a little bit of a Cold War between the First Order and the New Republic / the Resistance. It isn't really communicated well in the film, but in The Force Awakens, the attack on Hosnium Prime by Starkiller Base is when the Cold War ends and all-out war actually begins. Up until that point, there were battles and there were skirmishes, but it was all kind of like fringe third-party things going on that no one really wanted to acknowledge, and like all-out war started with The Force Awakens. So here with the Resistance, it's okay if we're joking around because no one's dying yet. That was really refreshing to just kind of see this humor really work naturally in the setting they were in, and I think it's a smart move on their part to kind of start in peacetime, but it's peacetime when you know it's not going to last much longer. So it's okay if some of the characters in the show are still kids because they haven't had a reason to grow up yet. That said, I already like the main character, Kaz, a lot. He's got a little bit of a Star Wars hero style that we haven't seen a lot. We've seen a lot of the rags to hero kind of story with Luke, with Rey, even with Anakin. This kid comes from a lot. He doesn't come from nothing, and because of it, he doesn't really know how to function on his own, and it's kind of about him learning to stand on his own 2 feet, and I think that can be really interesting. And all of the characters around him continue to have more than just kind of stereotypical sets of characteristics right from the get-go. From all of the stuff we'd seen, I was pretty sure my favorite character was going to be Niku, and I'm still pretty sure my favorite character is Niku. Niku reminds me a lot of Drax, only instead of being an assassin bent on vengeance, he's like a friendship guru. So yeah, that's basically what Niku is, and I think that's pretty fun. I ultimately think the show was really good. The animation was solid. I really like how the animation on the ships and everything look. I'm still not sold on the look of the animation itself. I've had a couple people tell me that, you know, it's like they like it because they like cel-shaded animation, and it's really not the cel-shaded animation. At the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of Eastern style animation, and I know I'm in an insane minority and not liking it, but that's really what it is for me more than the cel animation style. So I just don't think that's going to change, but I could recognize that the animation was really well done. It looked very smooth. The action was very easy to follow. I really liked how the movement in the show looked, even if the actual aesthetic of the show isn't what I would have picked. I don't really care if the animation is what I would have it be, just as long as the animation is well done. And the animation is certainly well done. The voice acting is great. It seems like they're going to reveal a lot more going forward. Obviously, there's 2 more episodes actually already available for streaming, even though they haven't aired yet, and I'll be watching those soon and talking about those soon, hoping to do commentaries on this. So there's going to be a lot more Resistance stuff kind of coming down the pipeline, but I just kind of want to get like this first impression of the pilot out there for you all to see. So I hope you watch the episode yourself. Please leave me a comment, let me know what you thought of the show, and make sure you're following us on Twitter at Port Haven Forum. Visit port-haven.com for even more. And until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking candy, Bob!